You really, look at it, look at it.
No. That was planned, Carol. That one was planned. No, but what do you think might have been in my thinking, except for the two people I just talked to over there and told them what my thinking was? To start with a lesson like that.
I was like,
Fantastic. The press. Ah, thanks, Dan.
can you explain how you can put your hand on your forehead and have your elbow straight or bent?
Your wrist straight or bent.
You said elbow.
Oh, sorry. I meant wrist.
Because I'm going.
Well, aren't
okay,
you silly not to ask me in the middle of the lesson? No, the wrist, because you can have it that or that.
Yeah.
And they both do different things to the shoulder blade. So it's a great one. These are the things, yeah? So what's the difference between the elbow being out to the side and turning and here? You've got so much more give that can happen through here. Your elbow. It was parallel always in relationship to other things. Your elbow and your knee were in a line, parallel to the ceiling at times. And then they were also moving parallel to each other. It has to be parallel to something. No. Yeah. It has to be in relationship to something, though. You can't just be parallel. So, what are some other... why do you think I did that lesson?
I saw set themes that some of the lessons that you've given us to teach within that as one thing.
I find it very core, so it was a great centering beginning thing. Right into that core.
I think you knew that I had to move the car and be really quick, and I had a jog, and
I absolutely knew.
It felt absolutely wonderful to jog. I felt really light and powerful. Yeah, so it felt good.
Yeah, you know,
it helped with moving my car quickly.
Yeah, I asked you halfway, quite a way through the lesson, what function would this be really useful for?
I could feel that rotation and
walking.
The power with the jogging. It was, felt really good. Yeah,
counter rotation. It's been really interesting. Di and I have both been up in Kerrang because my mum had a hip replacement on the something of December, the 20th of December. And it's been really interesting getting, going through steps to help her walk. So she's now on one stick and walking really well. And at 86, that's pretty good. Huh? 86. But, she had to start with 2 crutches going together. That's how, and then how do you start to feel? Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But it's a really interesting one. What does she have to understand to be on 2 crutches or 1 crutch? And to get off them. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to tell you my thinking behind that lesson. And again, I know where the lessons are going. You don't know where they're going. So my thinking is if I go back over all of these ones that you've already been doing, in the thing, is that, as I said, they're very much about finding the middle, and that you're finding more and more that the limbs are for direction. No? They're just to take you somewhere rather than being the power, rather than moving you. No? So, and that's something, how do we really work with that organisation in someone? Because again, you can imagine if I'm on my side and I'm pulling in like this, what's stopping me? If you do it yourself, what's stopping you straightening your legs and your arm? Something that you're doing in the middle. No? Can you feel that? Can people feel that or not? So if you lie on your side, you can do it in now, and you straighten your arm and leg out. Now bend them a little bit and feel how would you stop yourself from straightening them? What's happening in your centre, especially in your belly? It's shortening. No? So this ability for us to have long hamstrings, we've sort of, we were doing this a while back too. This ability for us to be long and to have equal length everywhere is about this ability for the torso to be able to keep changing its shape, to have all these possibilities, and then for your head to be free on top of that. And one of the things we're always looking for is this length, this sense that I've got possibilities, and how much of it is to do with this ability of our torso not to be stuck in particular configurations. Yeah? But again, it's not just about the ability to be long, but that I can change my shape to shorten and lengthen in all these directions, because there's many people who can look long, but they can't actually. They're stiff. So to be long for us is this ability always to have all of these possibilities available to us. And, I really wanted you to get that sense of how do I find that the middle of me can be the initiator, if you like, that there's just so many more joints in there that can do the work rather than these ones out here. Yeah? So that then these are free to adapt. They're free to do what I want them to do. So what we're going to do in terms of FI now is we're going to work with some of these different movements. So we thought we'd start off, because we've set it up, we've actually done the ATM. And the ATM is called twisting and opposing. Makes sense. Twisting and opposing. And opposing. Yeah. So we're getting the top and the bottom doing different things. And one of the things to realise about these planes of movement that we're finding through our torso, so just all have a stand up for a moment, is it's all these movements that children are discovering in themselves that are allowing their limbs to discover more and more. So feel the difference, because we were really looking at sort of the difference between, if you like, rolling or turning and twisting a little bit in that lesson. No? So feel the difference if you turn to look behind you. Yeah? So everything's turning to look behind you. And if you think whichever way you're turning, so if I'm turning to my right, feel if I wanted to turn my shoulder at the same time, how far and how easily does my shoulder turn as I turn, or as I shift around me to the right? When does my shoulder stop turning? When does it sort of take up its range and sort of go, oh, I've turned as far as I'm going to go? Huh? And then feel the difference if you, as this side goes back, you literally take this side forward. So you're going to twist more around yourself rather than turn. Can you feel the difference in your shoulder? What the possibility that opens up in your shoulder? Huh? See, then can you also feel what it does to your hip? So the difference if you just go behind you, or if one part of you comes forward as the other part comes back. So this is how we develop all this movement in our hips, in our shoulders. It's through these movements. It's through this exploration. So, you know, someone comes in and they've got these problems with their shoulder, for example. Is it their shoulder that needs movement, or is there something that they don't understand through the whole of themselves that's stopping this easy rotation of themselves? Yeah? You can really feel the difference though. So that rotation is allowing everything to learn to rotate. And we've done this in lots of lessons. Yeah? Many, many lessons sort of building up. Okay, so have a sit for a minute. If we think of positions, some of the positions that we work in, or positions we use. Yeah? Say in FI, what are some of the positions we use? Yeah? So lying on back. Side lying. Sitting. Lying on belly. Standing. So I'll put kneeling, or it could be a crawling position. Yeah? So we've got lots of positions. There's another one that I'll put in here. Not that you've done a lot of it, but it's also lying over the table. Yeah? Kneeling over the table. No? So I'll just put that down as another one. Which is sort of a combination of, can be of those two. Sitting and lying on the belly in a different position. Okay, so if we think about this idea that was in that lesson, and remember we started with the arm and the leg going together first, yeah? And then we went to the opposing. Yeah. So what do you think is the difference between those two? So they're both turning, if you like. If we're looking at this idea of rotation.
The one is twisting and the other one is rolling.
Yeah, one's more a twist or a counter rotation, if you wanted to call it that. Huh? And one's more that everything's going in one direction. Huh? So we've got, I think I'll put kneeling. No, I won't. Okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to break into groups, and each group is going to have one of these. Okay, so we want 4 in a group. So could you just choose, get in a group of 4? And does that work evenly? Has everyone got 4? If you haven't got 4, go into a group of 6. Are there 2 groups of 3? Yeah, then go into a group of 6. Great. Okay, so who wants, you just yell out what your group wants. So one of you, yeah? Lying on your back is taken. Belly is taken. Side is taken. Sitting is taken. Standing is taken. Who's the group who's getting? Oh, there's only 5 groups. Okay, so kneeling and crawling we'll leave out. Okay, so what you're going to do in your group is come up with some ATM moves. So you've already got that little ATM as a template, but there's lots of other ATMs. That was just to really show you what rotation is. Yeah? So you're going to come up within your position, say 5 or 6 moves that you feel would sort of encapsulate this plane of movement in that position. You're going to come up with 5 or 6 ATM moves or that someone's going to do. So, for example, yeah, so if Sarah was the person doing the movement, you've got to come up with 5 or 6 movements for her to do about turning in, yeah? So they're going to be about rotation. You might just want to do rotating, or you might want to put in counter-rotate. Yeah. Yeah? But the thing is, how do you add in the variations that you might put into that? Yeah? So if you're not clear, ask. So you're making up a little ATM lesson, basically. Five or 6, whatever you come up with. No. If you've got more, that's fine. So obviously you've got to sort of get movements that are going to involve all of them. There you go. So now, yeah. You've got one. But what are all the moves? You know? Yeah. But can you feel by just going through it and breaking it down a little bit, you have to understand it a little bit more, what you're doing? Yeah. Yeah. I think you can do it. We'll do another couple of groups before thing who feel they're ready to go, and you can, yeah. So how easy is it to stick to one plane of movement? It's a real constraint. Huh? And it makes sense, doesn't it, that it's a real constraint, because there's nothing we really do often that's one plane of movement. No. But it's a really nice tool, if you like, to clarify your thinking, to make you just start thinking, what do I do that I have to keep within this? And how many different positions can I do the same thing in? Because it's such a tool we use in our work of doing one thing in many orientations to clarify for someone. No? So the more you can begin to get this idea of these planes of movement are just like little building blocks, if you like, that you can work with. Okay, so who's ready to show what they were doing? Okay. So we're going to see the moves, and you're all going to observe these people doing it just to simply see what are the differences. What do you see that's different in how they all organise it? Huh? Just to pick up your observation skills a little bit. Yeah, so one of you obviously has to talk through the sequence. Yeah, to tell us what the moves were. Yeah. You can take it in turns, it doesn't matter.
We're not too concerned about what the wrist is doing. Legs wide. Okay, yep. Legs wide, not too wide, so comfortable. And then taking your head and body back and then bringing it round. You can go to the other side. And switching hands. And so the constraint is that the hand's got to stay on the forehead. And you can try and have the elbow lower or higher and see if that does anything different to the turn. But it's more just keeping that hand on the forehead as your constraint. So that's the first one. I didn't do that very well as I was. Hopefully they've demonstrated better.
So you did it one hand and then the other hand?
Yeah, and then the other.
Yep.
Yep. Unless we're being contradictory.
Yeah.
The second one is what you said. So turning around ourselves, first leading with the shoulder, turning to the right, leading with the right shoulder, and then turning to the right and thinking about leading with the left shoulder.
And you might be able to feel these a little bit on yourselves, yeah, as you're doing it, just to feel what are those different variations doing.
This is it. The third one we had was a hug. Yep. So just crossing the arms and head forward and just doing the movement, that twisting movement, and keeping the pelvis still. And did we vary that one up as well? Yeah, and then allowing the pelvis to move as well.
I thought we were letting the head do what it wants.
I think we were doing actually both. So what is it like with the head still and what is it like with it moving?
And then the next one, we crossed our legs over as a constraint so we could feel the counter rotation. And we were just rotating against the leg.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other leg.
Then we threw in some dead bird. So similar to dead bird, first following the bird. Can't do it while I'm holding this. And then keeping your eyes fixed and taking the bird as far around as you can. Can't do it with this.
And then doing some of these. So just letting the upper part turn around. With some momentum of the arms, letting the shoulders be relaxed, letting the arms relax.
And just as you said, turning the head or leaving the head in the middle. Yeah. So if I was going to just put a little bit more on you, if you go back to the first variation, yeah, and you all do it, what part of you is that waking up? What part of you do you feel that asks to be involved a little bit more in the movement?
The upper back.
For you, the upper back? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and Leonie's got her hands there. So that's where it gets really interesting as well. You know, when you do these variations, to actually start to key in, what's it asking? What am I asking to get more involved here? And your next variation? Yeah. Which shoulder was turning? Huh? So what does that ask to get involved in the movement once the shoulders start turning?
It's real twist along the spine. But when you start leading with the opposite shoulder, it's so sort of counterintuitive that, well, for me, I find that all of a sudden it's kind of, I don't know, it's like there's more
twist in the
activity.
Yeah.
Like, creating.
Can absolutely affect the weight shift as well. Huh? So feel the difference if you go with just your right leading and then you bring the left in. Yeah. So again, this is as you go through an ATM, how do you break it down? I mean, there's lots of things going on, but what's it doing? What's happening? Next one. Holding the arms. What's that asking to get involved? Yeah, where your elbows are is going to make a difference, isn't it? So you can see that the elbow is going to make a difference. Where if the elbows are on the chest or the elbows up, yeah, it's going to make a difference to what can happen in the shoulder blades. Yeah, so with the elbows can you feel how, and we talked about this a little bit last time, the elbows influence where the movement's going to happen. The height of the elbows, yeah, will influence because of the positions of the shoulder blade, that it's going to put your shoulder blades in. Which one's on top is going to make a difference. And then whether you're going to hold the head in the middle. So when's it easiest to hold the head in the middle? When the elbows are down or when the elbows are up? Yeah. Yeah. So all these seeming little things, but this is what we apply into FI. All of these tiny little things. So, you know, if I've got someone lying on their side and their elbows down here and I'm trying to get turning, where am I asking them to turn compared to if I have their arm up here? No? So all these little variations asking people to do different things. And your last one was crossing the legs? Oh no, dead bird. No, so what's dead bird asking? Because now the eyes have to stay attached. What's that going to do? It does depend where you put your elbow. Yeah. But is there something different in your neck when your eyes follow the dead bird rather than this? Something about the eye-hand connection that does something different.
Does feel different.
Yeah. Wakes up something in the neck often. Yeah? And then there was the crossed legs. And again, where's that asking something to happen that often for people doesn't happen? And
It's really effective at locking the pelvis. So
absolutely.
Everything has to happen above that.
Yeah. Because again, you know, in a position like this, and we've talked about this, you've got so much variation that can happen in standing. And that's why it's such a great position to work with people in who, you know, there's many people who are really uncomfortable lying. And often because they've got limited possibilities, but once you come up into standing or sitting, all of this movement often becomes available that allows them to do so much more. Okay, it's great. Well, next group, who wants to do next? Yeah. So we've got side lying. And again, as they do them, even if you're not in position, try and work out what is it that each variation.
Okay, we had side lying, and we are starting with lying on the side with the knee bent and the hands on top of each other with outstretched arms. Now the top hand glides forward towards the fingertips and the elbows are staying straight. So we focus on the feeling of the rotation around the waist and around the shoulder blades. And the hand slides back as far as or as comfortable towards the elbow. Feeling the rotation in the waist and what's happening in the shoulder blade and the neck. Okay, you can stop. And now we're distinguishing the same movement with the knees, the top knee sliding over the bottom knee and feeling where the movement is happening now. And the way shift from the front to the back.
And again, can you see as you're observing them, what's being evoked? What parts of them are being asked to be involved?
And also paying focus on what feels better, including, you know, the neck with the movement. And then we extended it, having the movement with arms and knees, it happening at the same time in the same direction. And feeling the difference of the whole body rolling together. And how much twisting and how much rolling is in this movement. And then we were doing opposite arms and opposite legs. So when the hands come forward, the top knee goes back, slides back. And again, feeling the movement around the midline, the waist, how the head needs to be involved. what's happening in the shoulder blades and in the neck. Okay, what was next? That was the circles, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, the next thing was we are imagining that there is a little stick coming out on the highest point of the hip. And this little stick makes a circle on the ceiling. So we're exploring circles forward and circles backwards. And again, paying attention where the movement gets initiated from. So feeling possible extension in the ribs. And then we're changing the focus on what's happening with the knees when we do these hip circles. Are they taking part in circles? And we're exploring the circles forward and backward. What is easier, smoother? And how does it change the quality of the circles when you pay attention to making the circle more on top of the knee or actually with the hip?
And really observe the differences in people's torso movement.
So does the movement get initiated slightly differently when you do it, when you focus on your knees?
And then
when
next
you focus
move.
on the hip? We were making it also a bit more complex. Now we are starting just with a shoulder circle. So imagine again the highest point of the shoulder making a circle on the ceiling.
So again, we've added in extra planes of movement here. Yeah.
And also exploring where the hand position is the most comfortable doing that circle. Is it easier resting it in front of you, on top of you?
It's quite different, isn't it, to when they do their
So where is just
hip
this
circles
tiny little circle?
in
Yeah,
the image.
what involves? It's the shoulder blade, the collarbone. What's involved? How far can you feel that movement?
And the next movement.
The next movement, we were doing the hip or knee circles and the shoulder circles at the same time. And then, if to put a challenge to it, making opposition of knee and hip circles for the really people who want to be challenged. That was, and again, feeling where the differentiation sets in, which muscles have to be involved and differentiated. Where is it happening in your body, in your midline? The next movement was gliding your right arm from being on top of each other towards your back, and then rolling onto your back, your knees following into the upright position. Then the right arm gliding down and the left arm following to make a complete circle towards the other side. And then rolling back, coming up the same way. And making it a smooth movement with arms and legs falling at the same time.
It's beautiful. Again, you can see they've brought in some other
feel the
planes
lengthening.
to help it out.
Where does the power come from when you turn? The lengthening of your back and shoulders and your ribs.
Great.
So that was our little thing.
So could you feel on yourselves what that was asking? And could you see on them how you really begin to see their self-image in action? You can see when people understand it really clearly, and you can see how the quality changes when you're asking them to initiate from somewhere that's just not as clear for them. Yeah? That something really happens in the movement. Okay, let's do one more before lunch. For sitting? Yep. Then we can do the other two after lunch. Yeah.
Sure. So first we just turned to look behind us to see that as what that felt like as a reference move. And we put our hands on our thighs, sliding the left hand forward to bring the left shoulder forward, and seeing what that did to the right hand. And the right hand began to go backwards as the left one went forwards. This is bringing in the shoulders. And then the left hand began to encourage the left knee to go down. So it grew that way. And then that was a little pause. And then your right hand was a dead bird. And you followed that around to the right, noticing what your knees and shoulders were doing to help. And then your right arm started to extend longer as you turned. And that could go in different planes. And we brought it up as we turned around. And as when it came back, it went down to your left. So it spiraled down the other way. And then we switched things around a bit. And the left hand was supporting, the right hand, sorry. And the left hand was the one that was going long, and it launched you off your seat. Left side coming up as you spiraled up and then spiraling down.
So what do you think all of those are bringing in? And again, we've put more planes in there. No? So what did you feel, if we go back through the first one? Do the reference movement first. Why choose that as your reference movement?
Well, because in the class beginning, there'll be a limited inclusion. And by the end of the lesson, more will be included. So when you do the reference again.
Of course, yeah. But why start with the hand behind? It's already starting to turn you a little bit. Yeah? Yeah, so what's it asking to have the hand behind? And again, these are the positions that offer a lot more variation. So your hand's behind. So what's it asking to get involved in the movement? This will make more sense this afternoon, I promise you. But what's it asking to get involved in the movement that you're not asking to get involved if you didn't have your hand behind?
Ribs?
What ribs? The right goes back and the left goes forward, maybe a little bit more. And again, it depends how much you're sliding on the seat too, doesn't it? Yeah? If you're keeping your pelvis a little bit more still. Your next variation, which was the hands. And they're sliding forward and back. What do you feel that involves more?
I feel the side lengthening.
People sitting, what do you feel if you were going to do that? What does that variation ask to happen? If you're sliding the hands. Rather than if the hands are staying still. Yeah, something happens very differently, doesn't it? As soon as you move the hands, compared to if you were turning and you had your hands still. Much more twist. Yeah. And then the next variation. So that's really putting a different plane of movement in now, isn't it? Yeah. So if I was going to stick more to rotation, I would have said the knee forward. Yeah? Rather than down. Because as soon as I get more weight shift, and it's just they're different things, so as soon as you take the knee forward, I'm getting a lot more movement through the hip, rotating. That's where I'm taking a lot of the movement. Whereas if this has to go forward, not down, then my spine has to do a lot more. Because I'm not really shifting my weight as much. I'm keeping my weight fairly central. So nothing, you know, what you did was great, but just realising what's the difference between if I shift my weight and really find the hip, or if I stay more central and I have to find much more in the middle of me. Next variation. Yeah, so again, this goes back. What does this do for the people who are trying it out? Can you feel this doesn't really ask the pelvis to do a lot in this position? Why is that? Why is doing that stop my pelvis moving as much? Something's going to be very different if my eyes are looking at my hand. Yeah? So one of the really nice things that as soon as the eyes contact the hand, usually, it's a great way to get this moving. Yeah? Generally, if you do anything with eye-hand tracking, this will nearly immediately be asked to move. Yeah? So there's going to be a really big difference when you do that if people don't keep their eyes really tracking their hand. But usually the other thing is when we're doing something with our hand at that closer level, we're not that interested in moving through space, are we? Am I interested in moving through space a lot if my eyes are really looking at my hand? Would that be what I would be evoking? Yeah, your brain would not be getting a message if I'm really interested in looking at my hand that I'm going somewhere. So just starting to think how these different variations really evoke something Something different. Next one. And then go and look. Because my eyes are not being, they can follow my hand, but can you feel it's a really, because I'm changing the distance between my head and my hand. So why does my brain think that is really different to not changing the distance between my head and my hand? Feel the difference. That's your brain doing that. Yeah? They're very different functions. Huh? Can everyone feel that? Yeah, it's that if my eyes and my hand are staying constant or if I'm changing the distance.
It makes a difference if you do it straight. Some people are doing it with the bent hand and then
You'll get a different movement through your torso. Absolutely.
and it changes.
And then you did it with the other arm, I think, didn't you? Oh, you went down. Yeah. So now they're getting a lot more weight shift in there. Yeah. So again, in all these movements, you can see all of you so far have really been, and that's a lot of what ATM is about. We're using the limbs to get into the torso. Does that make sense? Mainly in most of the movements we've so far watched, that we're using the movement of the limbs to try and get something happening in the middle. Okay, so with that idea, let's have lunch and we'll come back and do the other groups after lunch. So it's, if we come back at 1:45, yeah, we've got an hour today. Yeah.